On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you wherever you are, because it is morning somewhere for January 30th, 2024. My name is Burnie Burns. Sitting next to me, I see her. I'm back from travel, and I can lay eyes upon her. Say hello to Ashley Burns.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there.
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. I'm always glad when you get home.
I was away for what?
4 days.
Yeah, 3.5 days.
It felt like a really long time, though.
Yeah, but we're back. I'm back, and we are now debuting, I think, on Apple Podcasts today. We'll see.
Welcome to Apple Podcasts. So if you prefer to consume your podcasts via Apple Podcasts, you can do that now. If we're still on Spotify, of course, which is multi-platform.
You say that. We haven't actually hit the button to make it go.
Look, I have faith. It's going to work. It's going to be great.
Really?
Shut up. Don't.
Ashley, it's Apple. Click a button. Done. There was a joke we made in a PSA. It was for the release of Halo 2. They changed the pistol, and everybody loved the pistol in Halo 1, where you could get 3 shots.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, get 3 shots and kill people. And the new one did not do that. And we made a joke at the time in it that the pistol, does it still kill in 3 shots? And it says, yes, as long as those 3 shots are preceded by 6 other shots. That's pretty much what working with Apple can be sometimes, where it's like, oh, it's super easy. As long as you set up these 800 other things, or you go to click it and it's like, well, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's like, no, not like that. You have to do it correctly.
So there's been a couple of updates for me in Apple world recently. Sorry, did I cut you off while you were saying stuff? Is there anything they should know about being on Apple Podcasts?
That we also have an RSS feed on our website, morningsomewhere.com. So if you don't want Spotify, you don't want Apple Podcasts, you can put it into the podcast reader of your choice.
You know what? It's funny how the conversations, they completely change and the technology changes over time. But what you said, we've been saying the same thing for years, essentially. Let's like PC, Macintosh, Linux. Like that's the RSS feed is for the
Linux.
dorks that use Linux or Unix. Yeah. That's it. We always have that option. People are like, yeah, are you ever going to come to this like obscure podcast distributor that only 12 people are on? And if so, why not? It's like, because of all the reasons you just said. That's why not.
Do you want to know what it is, though? Aside from Spotify.
We're 2 people. We're 2 people.
I guess Google is shutting down Google Podcasts. So Android doesn't necessarily have a unified podcast platform that would be the Apple Podcast equivalent anymore.
Yeah, Google, another conversation we have all the time. Google starts some service and gets rid of it. You remember Google Video, which was the competitor to YouTube before they spent $1.4 billion on YouTube.
What was they were trying to make a social media competitor. Was it Google Plus?
Google Plus.
Blah, blah, blah.
There was another one too.
Google there are a lot of really great projects that Google has managed to put out, and there are about 10 times that many that they've started and then just stopped.
Actually, I think we should stick to complaining about Apple for today.
I don't know. Maybe the Apple people want to hear us complain about Google.
That is true. Maybe they do want to do that. What's the other one I'm thinking of? There was something else like Google Spaces or something like that, but they were trying to force it on it, like Google Chat and everything else, which I'm sure people still use, but I feel like Google has gotten rid of more social media platforms than other companies have even tried to make.
Yeah, I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. Google Glass.
And Google Glass, I have to say, the Apple Vision Pro, have they started shipping yet? I know they did the pre-orders.
I believe it's coming out
early Feb, right?
The 2nd of February.
Yeah, that makes sense. Groundhog Day.
Estimates now have them as selling 200,000 units. So it's pre-ordered out for months.
I would love if you load it up on February 2nd and the first thing you see is a groundhog shadow. It's like that's the first app that loads. But Google Glass, they did try to make look good, and people were saying that looked dorky. And if that looked dorky, the little glasses with the square up in the corner, I don't know how we're going to get away with the ski goggles that everyone's going to be wearing around town with a cord coming out of the back to the battery that's hung off their belt. We'll see. Listen, we all made it from, did you ever have back in the day when cell phones first came out, did you have a holster on your belt?
I don't think I ever had a holster.
You're a lady.
I had a handbag.
You're a lady. Yeah. I don't think many ladies did that. There was a lot of dudes I knew who had a clip on their belt and you would like, almost like you're like noon.
Does it go right next to your beeper?
I had a buddy that I worked with, a guy I really like a lot. He had a really annoying habit though, where he'd have his phone on ringer on full volume. This is mid-90s, by the way. It would ring. He would take it off of his belt, click out of the holster. He would look at it, let it ring one more time, and then answer it on that ring. Almost like he wanted people around us to see that he had a cell phone. That's strange.
Sure.
That's strange behavior.
I'm sure. At the time, it was cutting edge, though.
But my iPhone recently updated and had a new feature, which I really liked.
What's that new feature?
It might have done it, and I just haven't paid attention to this. It might have done it in a previous update, and this is the first time I've seen it. But I went to update my banking app. Ashley, it's the app that I use for banking.
Yes.
Goes to my bank.
Your bank.
And it said, you need to update this. Like the app knew it needed to update, right? When I loaded it.
Sure.
But it didn't update itself. So it said, you put me to work. You go do this. And I said, okay. So I updated it. You know the little thing in Apple when you hit update?
Yeah.
And then you get the
little circle and
with
then
the stop button in the middle?
Yes. And then it fills in as it downloads the update. Yeah.
It now has the estimated time next to that.
Does it?
It has a little 20 seconds and then it updates as you go. So when you're not just sitting there staring at the circle going around, you're like, is it moving? Is it not moving? Is it what? You can get a feel for it. Like the phone's with you in it now. It's like 12 seconds, 30 seconds.
I was going to say, does it do a Microsoft style where it'll be like 237 years? 240 years?
Have you ever had a progress bar where you actually put something on the screen to see if it's moving or not?
No.
Have you ever done that?
No.
See,
it's not a bad idea though.
It's weird how progress bars and things like that don't matter at all until they really matter. Like yesterday, I was in a situation where I was on a 10-hour flight because there's a direct from Austin to London. As soon as I got on the plane, I was editing. I was going to edit the podcast and put it out. And I thought, surely I can upload what will probably be about 25 to 30 megabytes over airplane Wi-Fi. I'll try it and see.
Thank God this is an audio podcast.
Exactly. Thank God. And then as soon as I get on plane, no Wi-Fi. So I know I'm sitting there for 10 hours and I think, okay, now I'm doing the math of, okay, I'm going to land. I've got to go through customs. This is the fun. Normally a daily podcast does not work this way. I got to go through customs and I've got 2 hours to do that and get to my gate. But I have a visa and everything, so it's a little bit faster. So, okay, I can do this. I can get this done. So I think it's okay to say this now that I'm off the plane and out of the airport. I broke some rules. I kept my laptop out so that when we landed on the tarmac and we were doing whatever it is we do when you land in a plane and then you just drive for 20 minutes. I never know what that is. And you can't see where you're going. I think they just take you like in a circle.
It's like the airplane lands the next town over and then they just casually have to go without breaking the speed limit, 30 miles per hour.
Yeah.
All the way to the actual airport.
I'm sure it's just how massive London Heathrow Airport is, but I feel like they should just, I don't know, it might not be safe, but they should put the airport at the end of the runway so that you just land and just zoom, and then you can do like a turn, it's like hit the handbrake and slide into the gate. That'd be so much better if they could do that. I don't know why they don't. Nobody consulted me, but I was uploading that, and you're watching when you have to upload something important, and upload's always worse than everything else, always. And so I'm just watching it, and I had to start a couple times, and I'm like, is that going to corrupt it or whatever?
And the more important it is, it always seems like the more it fails and the slower it goes.
Always. And it's always when you're stressing about it. I'm sure the stress makes you focus in on it, as opposed to when you just put it in the background and it does it on its own. Anyway, so it's nice now that Apple had this little small quality of life improvement that they did there on the side. I like that a lot. But I have some bad news in regards to Apple products.
Oh, no. Hit me with the bad news.
And to being on a plane yesterday for 10 hours. And because I was coming east and my day shortened significantly, I lost my move streak yesterday.
No!
So if you don't know what a move streak
Should've been doing
is,
some jumping jacks in the galley.
this is no fault of Apple's. You know what? I even knew. So really quickly, for people who don't have Apple products, what's it like to still have some money left? If you don't have Apple products, if you don't have an Apple Watch, they have a move ring. Which it's not steps and it's not calories. It's
like their own
as
thing,
usual.
Kind of like Fitbit. like
Right.
where they have their own. They had their own
steps, so babe.
Was it the Nike one then? Was the Nike Fuel?
That's the one.
And so it comes up with its own like number basically, and it does have calories. It wants you to burn a certain number of. It has active calories versus like your just calories to live, I guess, where it's like you're actually doing stuff. Now it counts, as opposed to you're just sitting around breathing and that counts. So you can adjust it. But it's this little ring and it fills out through the day as you be active. And then when you hit your goal, it throws you a little party.
You hit your move goal.
It throws you a little party. You've also got an exercise goal and you've got a stand goal. So it wants you to stand up once an hour.
That's so embarrassing, by the way. At one time I put on social media that you go back like 3 generations of men in my family. They were building bridges over rivers in upstate New York. And now I have a watch that goes, hey, you stood up. Good for you. It's so embarrassing.
So proud of you. But it's surprisingly addictive. As you have consecutive days where you meet your move goal and you burn this number of calories,
I don't even want to see how long my streak was.
It sets a streak, and then every day it's like, new longest streak, congratulations. And then it's this sort of, it can be positive, it can be negative, but positive reinforcement where you don't want to break the streak. So you're like, okay, fine, I'll get up and go for a walk. I just want to make my goal today before I go to bed.
That's where it's very powerful and motivating.
Until you break the streak.
Right.
You break the streak, and then it's like, well, life isn't even worth living. Why do I bother? I'll never stand up again.
So first of all, you're right. What is the unit? There's an exercise ring, which is minutes exercise when your heart rate gets over a certain rate for so many minutes. You want to hit 30 minutes a day on that. The red ring is movement. The blue ring is stand, which nobody cares
Yeah, it's
about.
calories.
It's not calories, though, because I'm like, here's the other thing. My move goal for the day is legitimate. Like, I see what other people have when they share their data with me. My move goal is like 800 a day. And as a human male, I burn way more than 800 calories in a day.
It's an active calorie thing.
But what does that mean?
I think it means the like calories above and beyond what it takes just to live.
Okay. Like if you hit the start a workout on your app and you say, I'm working out, your watch, because you can measure your heart rate, goes, but are you? Because I'll do like 60 minutes of a workout. Depending on what I'm doing, you know, my heart rate might be really high or it might not. You know what I mean? Like if I'm weightlifting and I have rest periods, you know, ironically, if I'm healthier, I'm going to have a lower heart rate while I'm doing these things, you know?
Yes, it's the burden of being super fit.
Listen, Ashley, it's a mantle that I wear every day. It weighs heavy upon me. But I somehow managed to make it through the day. But you're distracting. My move goal is 800. Do you want to shame yourself and tell the rest of the world, including Apple Podcasts, what your move goal is?
Yeah, sure. It's 300.
What is that?
That's the default.
I get that eating cookies by noon. I get 300.
My cookies.
Oh, by the way, the thumbnail for today, even though we're on Apple Podcasts and we're celebrating, I'm going to ask Ashley to put up the thumbnail of the 12 boxes of Girl Scout cookies that I brought for her from the United States.
I'm going to put them in a vault somewhere. You'll never find them.
I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. I still want to know where the fuck that cookie money is going. You know, I want to know. I want to see the Girl Scouts of America's headquarters. It's got to be a gilded palace. It has to be.
They're out funding the search for Amelia Earhart.
They're trying to, but they did find her plane.
They maybe found her plane. They found a plane under the water in the Pacific. It was like 100 miles off an island where I think she was due to be, to try to refuel, but is far away from another island where someone else claimed that she'd radioed a call for help or something. So who knows? But, you know, that's what the Girl Scouts are funding. You know,
it's really funny you say that because I know.
Also, it's not the Girl Scouts. It's a guy. A guy funded it with his like retirement.
Amelia Earhart. I know about her. Someone said once, if you ever feel insignificant, you should really think about the fact that there was a second person in the plane with Amelia Earhart. And nobody knows that dude exists.
James Noonan, Frank Noonan, something like that.
There you go. You know who he is. Did you read it in the article?
I did.
Did you know there was a second person in there?
Yeah, of course.
You did?
Yeah, she wasn't flying solo.
Why not? She's an intrepid explorer. Why? I always assumed she was solo. Anyway, if you say Amelia Earhart, I feel like people all over the world would be like, oh yeah, Amelia Earhart. Like her plane disappeared. I don't know. I know she was trying to go around the world. I literally, until you said the Pacific Ocean, I had no idea where her plane went down or where she disappeared approximately. If you'd have pressed me for it, I would have said Bermuda Triangle. It's like there was a discussion one time that we had, which who is the most famous person in the world that you don't know what they look like? And I think we all agreed it was Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Like, can you picture him in your head?
Nope.
Isn't that interesting? But you know who Neil Armstrong is.
Yes, I do know who Neil Armstrong is. But you're right. I can't picture him in my head.
No.
I can picture Buzz Aldrin.
You can really?
Yeah.
That's
Well, I
interesting.
met him.
Where'd you meet him?
In Australia.
No kidding.
Yeah, he came down and he did some stuff with Microsoft.
Yeah. Big debate there, too. Some guy walked up to him and was like accusing him to his face, like, you're a liar. You didn't land on the moon. And Buzz Aldrin at like...
Slugged him?
Yeah, like 70, I think he was at the time, like, or mid-70s, like slugged the guy in the face. And it's kind of like, you know, at what point can you get one punch? You know, like, what's the line?
Like, what's the line where one punch is, like, acceptable?
This is an astronaut, I believe a West Point graduate. You're looking him in the face, pointing your finger in his face, calling him a liar. It's like... He shouldn't hit you, but
I'm not saying punching is the right thing to do, but I am saying I get it.
Right. It's just, is it out that far outside the bounds of expectation? Like, what else is he going to do? He has to just sit there and tolerate you doing that, you know, for the rest of the day if you decide that's what you want to do?
You could go on Twitter and just make he could angry, what do they call, subtweet you?
Subtweet Buzz Aldrin. I'm not going to say who, but the second guy to walk on the moon. Not naming names here. Kind of a jackass. But yeah, I met him. We did a thing he had some. It was a little controversial when I did it. It was like some kind of like Who's Who, you know, that thing in American high schools. Mm-hmm. It was like some kind of conference for like high school kids that are bound for greatness. I don't know how else to put it, but it was like a stadium full of them. Well,
that's not a way to set people up for future anxiety.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Honor Society for the Honor Society or something like that. Anyway, I did a speech at that thing, and there was a big talk about Buzz Aldrin was not the second man on the moon. He landed on the moon the same time as Neil Armstrong. Like, they were on the moon at the same time. Like, that's a big point of distinction, apparently.
Well, but it's like... foot on the moon is what they're talking about, right?
Well, that's what everyone talks about. First man to walk on the moon.
Yeah, I mean, all three of them were on the moon.
No. Third guy was up in the thing. He was, at one point, he was the loneliest person ever in humanity.
Oh, I thought he was operating the lander.
I believe he was in orbit when the other two went down. We should look it up. And who's that guy? Like, how come we can't even name this third guy? I'm sure lots of people listening to this can name him. Mm-hmm. His name isn't Ken.
He's not Ken.
And by the way, that guy was the size of 15 ducks orbiting the moon.
I feel like they're just having a joke now, right? There was the one about
100%.
like a bunch of corgis.
They've leaned into it.
They're like, here's a meteor the size of a corgi.
But I do want to say,
Charles Pete Conrad was the third man to walk on the moon.
What mission was he?
He was Gemini 5.
Yeah, that's not the one.
No.
What was the mission to land on the moon? Go.
What
was the mission?
Apollo,
which one?
11?
Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah.
Definitely not 13. I've seen that movie.
No, definitely not 13. So I want to finish up on the Apple stuff, though. So I lost my move streak. I first learned about streaks as motivation from an odd source. I learned it from Jerry Seinfeld talking about how he writes. And he would do streaks on a paper calendar. He'd put an X. And so streaks are great. But then when you lose your streak, which I have, do you remember when I lost my last streak of 1,000 days?
I did. You were devastated and you didn't wear your Apple Watch for months after that.
And I think it's also demotivating you're like, well, now that my streak is broken, there's nothing I can do about it. I didn't know I had lost my streak. I had lost my streak by 1 calorie. The little circle that went all the way around.
It was like $7.99 out of 800.
Right. I think it was $5.99 out of 600 that day. And I could have changed it. I knew last night that it was wrong, and I could have changed it. I think there's even a way to like set your time zone back or something like that, and then you can give yourself an extra hour to get your move goal. I just didn't do it out of stubbornness because I don't want to be held hostage by the streak. More so of I do want to continue to like get up at night and do it.
So what you're saying is you set yourself free.
I'm free. Well, I'm saving myself from being completely demotivated by losing my streak, because it's one thing to lose a streak of like 20 days and you're like, okay, well, I'll get it back on track and I'll beat it. When it's 1,000 days, what the fuck are you going to do at that point? You know?
Yeah, I think I broke a 1,000-day streak at one point when I was pregnant or recovering, something like that, and I just went away, and it was very demotivating.
But I do want to say, while we're on the Apple, I have to lean into the Apple stuff because we're on Apple Podcast today.
What's the day for it?
So as you know, I did not upgrade any of my Apple stuff. And I'm complaining about the move streak. I think I'm complaining about it. I'm not sure. I love my new Apple Watch. I got the Mega Watch or whatever, and I waited 3 years, Ash, to upgrade any of my Apple products.
You did.
Because they were supposedly going to make everything USB-C. The EU had made a ruling saying they had to make their stuff USB-C to combat e-waste, which is weird because it just made a bunch of cables you had to throw away, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, that's it. I'll be happy. I'll have one cable for all of my things. I didn't upgrade any of my electronics for years.
You fool!
Ashley.
Do you know how many types of USB-C there are in this USB-C?
What in the world? How many times can we get the U in USB-C wrong? I didn't know this until I upgraded. Everything was finally USB-C. Now, all the stuff that I had been buying before that was USB-C, it can't use the cables. They look the same. At least before I could tell the difference in the cables because they had a different port on the end. But now I can't even tell the difference. It's just a USB-C cable. I plug it in and it goes, oh, no, that's the wrong speed.
Yeah, because there's either the high-speed USB-C or the, like, I don't know, slow USB-C.
Why? Make it make sense.
It doesn't.
I have a mouse. It's a mouse.
Okay.
Runs my computer. It's a mouse. I paid, it's a nice mouse. I didn't invest, but I got a nice mouse because I thought it would look good on my desk. I paid $100 for this mouse.
It's a lot of money for a
charge it with
clicky,
USB-C.
clicky.
It was $100. Got it. So I got the USB-C cable. It only works if I use an old school USB-A, like the old school, the USB port that everyone knows, to USB-C. I can't use a USB-C to USB-C. I can't use a high-speed USB-A to USB-C. I have to use just this, and there's no way to tell. There's no way to tell which one is one. It's $100, the mouse. I paid $100. If I'm going to charge $100 mouse, I should be able to plug it in, and the $100 mouse will charge, and it doesn't. It doesn't. Anyway.
Would you like to take a little breath, and I'll tell you about the Apollo 11 mission?
Go ahead.
So it was Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They had the Apollo lunar module, and it was Michael Collins flying the command module Columbia in lunar orbit.
Gotcha. Michael Collins. And he was at one point the loneliest person in history. He also,
you say that because he was from a pure distance standpoint, he was the farthest away from another human that any human has been.
Any other human could have possibly been in history. You could look that up when I'm seeing it. And I think he also has a really cool photo, which is he snapped from the orbiter a photo of the lunar lander leaving. And in the background is the planet Earth. And if you're keeping score at home, that's our planet. So that photo is a very distinct photo in that it contains every single human being, living and dead, except for Michael Collins.
Oh, that's sad.
Isn't that interesting?
That is sad.
Yeah, it's the only photo that's like that. And I don't know who thought about that, but that's a really interesting thought to me.
And also everyone on the other side of the Earth that's not shown.
No, they're in the photo. They're contained within the frame of the photo.
In the frame.
If the Earth is there, they're in the frame of the photo.
They're just behind it.
Yeah, they're just like the tall people in the back. And everyone on the continents in the foreground, the people have to kneel down. And then they did one crazy one for everybody. All right, what any closing thoughts? First-hand Apple podcasts, and all we did was complain about Apple.
As is tradition. I would say if you are listening to the podcast, close your eyes unless you're driving, then eyes open, eyes on the road, Buster. And think of someone that would enjoy this podcast and send it to them.
Yeah, and later this week we'll have our first morning someone, and it was interesting because the concept of a streak and having to earn the ability to maybe have a cheat day or whatever, or just a gimme, that was actually something we talked about in our first interview. You can noodle on that for a little while.
Oh, interesting.
All right, well, that does it for us today, January 30th, 2024. We'll be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.
Quack.